loud.
This is the Sluggo, slant and go.
Fellows, it's Wednesday again. Casey's doing research. What is that? Kirk Herbstreit. Oh, doing research on LSU SC. It is Wednesday, episode 65 of Sluggo. I'm Marty Coleman. I am in Kyle, Texas. I'm the guy who put money on Spencer Rattler and DJ Uiagalelei. Not one, both of them to win the Heisman Trophy. That, or is it that? Casey the Beef Cregan. He's also the rapper formerly known as Beefy McBeeferson. Look it up. It's on the internet. It's true. The other guy over there is Zach Locks Park from the greater Metro Pooler, Georgia area. Most people don't know this, but he's a hand model for Busch Light.
It's a true story. He's the before model.
He's the best. Hey, guys. Usually I ask you what was happening, how's your week been and what's been going on, but today I have a story.
Okay.
Lunchtime, Kyle, Texas. I was going outside for water, and and I saw this thing hanging on the roof of the covered porch we have out back. First, I thought it was a butterfly. Upon closer inspection, it was as big as my hand. I said, well, that doesn't look like a butterfly anymore, right? So maybe it's a bat, right? Austin has bats. Maybe it's a bat.
Sure.
Wasn't a bat. And I was like, what is this thing? So I pulled out my trusty, dusty iPhone, pulled up the app that identifies anything.
Yeah.
And apparently, in my backyard, I have a tropical swallow-tailed moth. Now the thing is literally as big as my hand, right?
Oh my God.
And that's not the kicker. You know where the thing is from? Now I'm in Kyle, Texas. It is known to habitate Borneo, the Himalayas, and the Malaysia Peninsula.
It's lost.
Yeah.
It's loster than Locks. I'm wondering if he's walking too loud after a game. The thing is this big, man.
That's crazy.
It does look like a bat. I'm looking at it right now. You can see it. It does look like a bat. Wow, that's intense.
And this is the commercials where you say you turned into your dad? I'm done, dude. I'm done because you know what I did? I took a picture and posted it to the neighborhood Facebook group. So I am my dad. I am my dad. And then, of course, you got the lady around the corner who says, I saw that in my backyard last week. Oh, I know you did.
Of course you did.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
Whatever.
there's only one in the whole Kyle.
It's yours.
I got it. I got it in my backyard. I'm thinking about frying it up next week. All right, fellas. I don't know if you know this, but Clemson played North Carolina State last week. It was a nail biter. But we ended up biting more nails than everybody else did, I think. Tigers lost again, 2-2. But I have some perspective, which I shared today on seldomnewsreserve.com. I know Casey read it. I know Zach will read it after tonight. That's homework.
Absolutely.
But the perspective is we've been really lucky as Clemson fans over the last 6 years. And these losses only hurt so much because we're not used to them. Right? We could be Wake Forest or Duke or Boston College and we were for so many years, basically.
Mm.
But these losses hurt because we're not used to them and we're used to playing at a higher level. But I wouldn't trade those 3 championship trophies in the Allen N. Reeves football complex for anything. I'll take this pain if it means somewhere down the line there's another national championship. And I've told Casey this story, and I've told it on the show before, that when they won in 2016 or after the 2016 season, I ran around the house. Everybody else was asleep. I ran around the house trying to find somebody to hug like Jim Valvano, right, in 1983 or whatever it was. but I explained it to my wife, and that will never happen again in my lifetime. That's why it's so unique and so crazy and so wild, and I'm so happy. Well, it happened 2 years later. And so we got used to it. We went from it'll never happen again in our lifetime to expecting it real quick. So that was my contribution. I just wanted to add some perspective. And I also saw, I've been putting up the highlights. I don't know if you guys follow me on the social, but of DJ actually making a couple of plays and looking like there was some hope of improvement in the future. Beef, I want to get your take first, and then we'll go to Locks with his SEC shirt on.
I first and foremost, I'm with you, and I appreciated the column today that you wrote about the perspective, and from your perspective, really, one thing I think that we've seen this week, especially around social media, is that it was a eulogy for Clemson football, which that's probably what bothered me most. This team may be done, and Locks and I were discussing it a little bit earlier today. Like, this year may be a wash. But the way that they're recruiting and the way that the coaches have the equity, I'm sorry, Tony Elliott has equity. Be mad at him now. I get it. That's fine. Throw your ire all over him. There's a reason that he's been wanted at all these big time programs. The guy knows football. So I don't think we're done as Clemson fans anytime soon. I think that, you have a year off. Every other program other than Alabama always has the down years. I think they're going to be okay. So you kind of, for me personally, I took a big sigh, a Chad Yarber sigh the other night, and said, you know what? The pressure's off the rest of the year. And I'm going to the game this weekend. And I can't wait to get up there, because I feel like there's going to be some pissed off people, but I'm going to hang around with more people that are going to be more loosey-goosey, because you know what? We don't have the expectations anymore to win the national championship. Let's screw around and go 10-2. Why not? And play in the Orange Bowl or wherever. I think it's going to be okay for Clemson folks. The thing that bothered me the most about the game, and then I'll pass it to my guy over here, is that they absolutely showed glimpses of being dominant. Those two drives, those two throws that DJ made, even the throw in overtime where Ross had to spin around, was still a great throw. Yeah, that was the only place that Ross could have caught that ball with the defender. They show at times the dominance that they can be. And then the next drive, it's complete ineptitude. And so I think that, for me, is the most frustrating thing as a fan of Clemson, was that if they didn't show any signs of life, you kind of be like, okay, well, they really suck. And NC State tried so hard to give Clemson that game this weekend on more than one occasion. I think I counted 3 times that NC State was like, here, Clemson, you have this. We're not worthy to beat you. And we were like, hold my beer. You guys take it. That's just how it felt. And as Kevron says in the comments here, Clemson will be okay.
All right. Let me read off the comments. We're fired up here. We've already got 6 so far. Nelson says he's back. What did he miss? Is Clemson still a college football playoff contender? Yeah, I missed anything, Nelson. Nelson also likes Zach's shirt, apparently, with the SEC. And your boy Chad Yarber chimes in, talks about DJ's accuracy. I think he's saying that's how the moth got into my backyard. From Borneo. Kevron says, hi, y'all. I'm pulling for both Clemson and Ole Miss this Saturday.
Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy and Dabo. And Jeremy Bone, what a great name for a dude. I said the same thing in 2016. I was 4 in 1881, so I waited a long time to see that natty. 2018 was a surprise.
We're the same age, Jeremy.
Kevron says Clemson will be okay. All right, now for the SEC perspective on Clemson. Zach Locks Parker, you're up, bud. Your takeaways from last Saturday.
I don't want to make everybody mad. Let's just say that. I'm thoroughly disappointed. I am. I just think with the year so far as it's going, being 2-2, 4 games in, I think it's something that is very unexpected. Let's just say that. You were saying, Case, about we have a down year, whatever. This, if you looked on paper, you wouldn't have thought that this would be a down year. I think the tools are on the team. I just don't think they're being utilized. I was just disappointed to see the offense again beating their head against the wall with the same type of play calling over and over and over. And they're not getting the ball into the playmakers' hands. I'm not calling for Tony Elliott's resignation either. Like you said, he's a great coach. He's wanted everywhere. He's been the best coordinator, 4 out of the past 5 years or something like that. I just wish he'd try something different. It's just getting really frustrating to see. I'm even begging for a bubble screen. I never thought I'd say that in my life. Just to get the ball in the playmaker's hands, get it out of DJ's hands, give him a chance to complete a pass, give him a little confidence, get it going. Because it's just this up and down. It's up and down. It's like, make a great throw, and then you said it's 3 and out, and just rifling the ball 160 miles an hour out of bounds again. It's getting better, but it's like when you're below ground, now you're a half inch below ground instead of being 6 feet below. We're not like climbing huge mountains here, I don't think
Right.
yet. So I'm really hoping to see some improvement come on here. Or just try something different, guys. You have one of the best defenses we've had in years, and it's going to go to waste. And it was really sad to see these kids get hurt this past week too. And it just all came together at the same time for the perfect storm. It just really just disheartening. It sucked. The whole weekend sucked. And Sunday sucked. I'm torn up about it, man. I knew they weren't great and it wasn't going wonderful, but it just didn't seem like we'd be in this spot. I don't feel like that's our last loss this season. Let's say that.
I definitely heard that on the podcast, talking about 2-2 Clemson ranked number 25 and why, because that's not their last loss of the season. And the way they're playing, they could lose any Saturday, right? They could lose at Syracuse. They could lose this week. I had a glimmer of hope, but again, a little bit older, a little bit more perspective. I'm not saying I'm okay with the losing. You guys know from the way I texted you Saturday, I'm just as upset as anybody. But once the game goes away and I think about the big picture, there are 128 teams that would love to be in Clemson's position. Does that make 3 hours on Saturday any better? Nope, not at all. But it makes, when you think about it and say, how many teams have 2 national championships in the last 4 or 5 years? How many teams have won 10 games for how many ever years? And I know those are all platitudes for people who want to win now, and probably something Dabo's saying and catching heck for. But that's kind of the way I feel. I am terribly sad on Saturdays, and my nephews don't even text me anymore. After the Georgia game, they just gave up, I think, so that's just the way it is. We got a couple more comments. Nelson says a problem with the bubble screens that Clemson's wide receivers aren't blocking, and he fully expects more losses. With the injuries. Yarber says, I complained the past 2 years, it's hard to drive 5 hours to see us blow people out. Sorry, it's my fault. All right, no doubt. And that's funny because I don't know if I told you guys this. I told someone this today. Parker, my son, actually asked Saturday. He came downstairs. Astros were on at the same time, so Clemson second to the Astros. He came downstairs, looked at the TV, saw it was overtime. He knew they'd already lost to Georgia. He looked at me and said, is this more exciting than winning 49-3 every week? And I was like, no. No, I'll take 49-3 every single.
Someone said that to me too. Someone said it was boring on a national. I think it was Mark Ryan, actually, for the ESPN Greenville voice, upstate voice. He said it was more, as an outsider's perspective, it was boring to watch Clemson because they were blowing people out. And I said, coming from and this is the whole thing that caught wind this week about the Tommy West and the Tommy Bowden era. Well, that's where I came from, and that's where Zach came from, and every game was like Saturday, and it sucked, and it usually went that way, as the same way that it went on. So no, from my perspective, from where I sat as a student and then fan coming beyond that, no, none of those games were boring. I watched every second. I stayed in an Orange Bowl for every moment of that 70-33 game. I'm for sure going to stay at the 70-3 games as well in our favor.
I don't know. And with the injuries to the defense on Saturday, as Locks alluded to, the offense and defense, Shipley, and I was thinking of Tyler Davis and Brzee, and man, that's the heart of that defensive line.
This weekend
gone for a long, long time. So
this weekend's going to be a test for those boys in the middle too.
Yep.
yeah, so we'll get to the game in a little while. I've got a pick on the game, so we'll get to that in a little while. The game this week with Boston College. Hey, let's look on the bright side. Florida State is 0-4, and could you imagine an ACC where Clemson's 2-2 and lost to NC State, and Florida State's 0-4 and lost to, who did they lose to? Jacksonville State or whoever, and they almost beat Notre Dame in the first game of the season. So if there's a team with bigger problems than us, it's probably Florida State. So the ACC, and Zach, I know as an SEC fan, you've probably been thinking this for years, and I admit there's some fluctuation and up and down in the ACC, a lot of it down because a lot of them don't care about football. But, man, it's hard to be an ACC fan this year, ACC football fan, because this league is terrible.
It's pretty bad. And North Carolina taking another L to Georgia Tech this past week.
They got blown out.
Beat up. Yeah, terrible, out of nowhere. And it's hard to watch. You just kind of like wince whenever you check the scores toward the end of the day. You're like, oh, y'all lost to who this time? And, it's out of conference losses to teams that you
Northern Illinois
never hear from, directional Michigan type schools. It's just really surprising, and it's rough. I mean, it can't help anybody across the board, recruiting wise, anything. It's like,
didn't Georgia Tech lose to Northern Illinois?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
And Pittsburgh lost to Central Michigan,
Central Michigan, directional Michigan. So it's not over.
It is not. It is not a good conference this year.
No.
And speaking of guys who took L's last week, Ohio State linebacker Kayvon Pope went about asking for playing time, apparently in the wrong way.
Clearly.
Beef, what was your take on this little escapade? And people wonder why Clemson players didn't get on social media during the season for a few years.
This guy tweeted, and I didn't know really. I recognized the name, but I didn't remember him. I think I remembered his name from like recruiting back in the day. Probably a 4 or 5 star kid having trouble getting on the field, and tweets out, F Ohio State. And so I was like, oh, man, that kid's maybe it's a recruit or something like that. Then you keep reading down and you realize that this guy's actually playing and the game's going on. So like my mind was literally blown, and it was mush already after watching Clemson. So I'm like, what the heck is going on? Just a bad look by the kid, a bad look all the way around, really. Ohio State actually handled it pretty professionally, and the kid actually apologized and obviously was dismissed from the team as he walked off the field, threw his gloves and helmet, everything into the stands. It was just a weird thing. And someone else will give him a chance. I've already saw things on social media saying, hey, he can be a backup here at like Georgia. And it was like, of course, Georgia.
For a defense that could use all hands on deck as well, I think. It's surprising that he just, I don't know.
Quit.
He's gone. He's like, went around the wrong way, man.
No doubt.
That's not going to get you on the field, right? That's not going to. I tell my son all the time, whining's not going to get you a yellow cookie donut.
Or does he say that to you? That's the thing is if you think you want playing time, handling it this way is not the way to do it, right? Because there's no way, even if you didn't do the F word on social media, the coach is not going to, quote, give in to you by letting you play more because you're making a fool of yourself on the sidelines. Speaking of which, Oklahoma barely slipped by West Virginia. My guy Spencer Rattler, another off day. And the reason I brought up the social media thing is because the fans are all over Lincoln Riley, supposedly on social media, saying, put in Caleb Williams. Is that going to make Lincoln Riley put in Caleb Williams? I think it's going to have the exact opposite effect. He's going to say, I'm not giving in to the fans. I was thinking about putting Caleb Williams in, but now, heck no, because I'll appear to be, appeasing the fans. And what if something goes wrong? What if he's great and I should have been playing him all along? And, the whole thing, you just kind of lose control of it. So I don't know why the fans think they're going to have any input on what the coaches do. Locks, your take on the situation in Norman?
I don't get Oklahoma. I think a couple have said picks on Oklahoma. I know Beef at least has said like, this is it, scorched earth from here out. They're gonna take over, and it's kind of like Clemson waiting on. I feel like Clemson's offense could just score 45 like that if they just put it together. Oklahoma definitely should be doing that, definitely against the competition that they have, and with Spencer Rattler, who showed signs of greatness last year. I don't know what's going on. I honestly haven't watched them play at all, but he's just not hitting on all cylinders right now. And it makes you wonder, Lincoln Riley, known to actually put up the points and adapt and make some changes, he may be thinking about making this change. But now, like you said, Marty, maybe he doesn't want to do it because the fans are saying he doesn't, it's like the double look. It doesn't want to look like he's giving in, but maybe they will make a change. I don't know. If it's a tight game, he may do it like a Jalen Hurts Tua situation. Maybe he'll look like a hero, but who knows what's going on over there. It's a bad scene.
What's your thoughts, Beef?
The fans of struggling teams' favorite player is always the backup quarterback.
That's
we
right.
had it growing up in my Clemson fandom. It didn't matter who it was. When I was there as a freshman, Woody, or who was it? Freshman year. Nealon Green was there freshman year, and everyone wanted Brandon Streeter or Billy Lucky. Then Brandon Streeter was there, and everybody wanted Willie Simmons. And then Willie Simmons was there for a half second. It was like until Clemson got Taj, Deshaun, and Trevor, the favorite player of everybody when they struggled was the backup quarterback. You're hearing it now. So I feel like that's what Oklahoma's doing. I have watched a little bit of what they are. I think Oklahoma fans and coaches should send Clemson a thank you letter, because if Clemson wasn't struggling, the spotlight would certainly be on Oklahoma more than it already is.
Yeah, I dropped them out of my top 5, and I know that hurts Oklahoma and Riley's feelings, but I actually dropped them when they win because I kind of look at how they're playing and think that doesn't look like a top 5 team to me.
No.
Nelson says, wait until Saturday in Death Valley. I hope our fans and students don't do the same to DJU. Well, if social media is any gauge, they will be very much. John Champsey chimes in and says, Billy Lucky, I'm impressed.
It was Luckie, John.
Oh, he's even correcting your spelling on Billy Lucky. So there goes our 5-star review. All right, Lox. This is a little bit more in your realm here. Arkansas beat Texas A&M last weekend, and for another year, we have 360 days of talking about how great Texas A&M is going to be, and this is year we're going to be in playoff. We're going to do it. We're going to lose early in the season to a better team.
Right. Yeah, and Texas A&M, the Texas A&M Alabama game, which is I think 2 or 3 weeks, was supposed to be the big game. Now that's not so important anymore, and Arkansas is just a world beater all of a sudden. Now they have to play University of Georgia this weekend at noon. So that's Arkansas is really in a rough patch right here. They've won the first game, which is more than a lot of people predicted. They have Georgia this week, and then is it Auburn next week? Maybe, I think so. It's kind of a tough little gamut they're running through, but I mean, if they can get 2 out of 3, that's going to be great. They're going to be ranked 24th for the rest of the year if they get 2 out of 3. We know that, like Auburn always usually is. But yeah, hey, Sam Pittman's a great coach. Everybody knows that. Personal guy. I don't know if you guys have heard many interviews with him. He's got the gift of gab. Kind of reminds me of Brad Scott. Just can talk about anything with anybody for the longest time ever. Good coach. They have some great facilities down there. He's probably recruiting like crazy too. So this is just a good start for that team, turning it around after what it was for a long time. Boy, it was a rough patch down there.
Does he remind you of Brad Scott or Robbie Caldwell more? Kind of.
Both. It's kind of,
take my shoes off and relax or whatever you're saying. Nelson chimes in and says the big game is Ole Miss and Alabama, and yes, I think Mr. Locks will have a bet on that game later. Beef, do you have any thoughts on Texas A&M and Arkansas?
No. I'm just kidding. Me have thoughts? No. I watched a little bit of this game, and I was impressed with Arkansas. And as you said, Marty, we hear forever. And I was looking around at people saying, how is A&M going to be better? They lost a little bit on defense. They lost their quarterback who was there 100 years. And I had my doubts on Kellen Mond, but he was as steady as they came. He was a good game manager. Don't ask him to win a game, but he was a good, solid quarterback. And then their starter goes down, and you think that they're going to automatically still be good. I just Hunter King went down, and I just didn't see how they were going to be better this year, and yet still highly ranked. The Jimbo Fisher effect, and then an Arkansas team, an upstart Arkansas team, comes in and puts a little physical beating on them. I know it was a close game, but it was physical. That was a real physical, good SEC football game, and I'm not going so far as locks, but I enjoyed watching a little bit of that game, and I'm glad A&M lost because I missed them on Twitter.
Well, Kellen Mond is a great quarterback if it's 24-3 in the fourth quarter. Not ahead, behind, because he will lead you slowly down the field and eat up all the clock. So
I love Isaiah Spiller.
Well, we don't have to wind up missing the first quarter of the Clemson game or watching it on our phone.
That's true.
Because they're throwing 148 passes incomplete on the sidelines. They'll just run it up the middle, throw a little out. Just keep the clock running. But yeah, I didn't see much of that game, and I'm just fed up. It used to be I was fed up with Texas. Now I'm just fed up with the Texas A&M every year. They're great. They're going to be great. Now, they recruit really well, and that has something to do with it. And I think Beef had a great point with the Jimbo Fisher effect, right? Because he's one of the three or four coaches with a national title. And my God, he's got all the resources. I don't get it. He's got the money. He's got the state recruiting. He's got everything. They should be better than they are. And maybe they will be, but they're not yet. Last game we'll talk about from last week, fellas, Notre Dame and Wisconsin. I watched this game on and off as I was fixing up the man cave, which, by the way, Casey, I checked today. The Wi-Fi works out there, so that may be the future Sluggo studio. The only problem is there's a refrigerator full of beer like a foot away from me, and things could get loose here with another loss or two for Clemson. Notre Dame beat Wisconsin, and it was they were actually trailing in the fourth quarter, early in the fourth quarter, and then won by 28. How much? What was it? 41-13. Yeah. So losing in the fourth quarter, but win by 28. So it looks good on paper. And I got a bet on the Notre Dame game this week. We'll see which way I go on that. But any takeaways be from Notre Dame and Wisconsin? As Notre Dame, it sounds ridiculous to say they won 41-13, but hung on to win for another week.
Yeah, I was not impressed with Notre Dame at all. And I know a lot of the people on the social media, especially Notre Dame fans, are touting that it was like the highest rated game. But the noon slate last week, really, they were up against Utah State and Boise State on one TV. They were up against Boston College and Missouri on another TV, which I was splitting time between because I like watching BC. But I don't know if that's something you need to hang your hat on, the fact that Notre Dame had good ratings this week. But I did watch a lot of that game, and pretty much Wisconsin could not do anything. So I do give it up to Notre Dame's defense. Notre Dame got a lot of breaks as far as turnovers. I was not impressed with Notre Dame offensively at all, and yet they put up 40 burger. Wisconsin was completely inept. They took away the run completely, and Jack Cohn could do nothing on offense. And there was one big pass interference call that they called on Wisconsin where it was an interception, and I didn't see contact within 10 yards of the receiver, so I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it was a real ticky-tack call, but it completely changed the whole momentum of the game, and then Wisconsin pretty much fell apart from there. But, yeah, it's a win in advance sport, right? I'm not going to remember. I don't remember the score of that game. We obviously didn't. The three of us didn't remember the score, but Notre Dame won. They won by a lot on paper. They got Cincy this week. They're undefeated.
Locks, it wasn't an SEC game, but did you get any eyes on this game at all?
I didn't. I was otherwise occupied. I trust me. I wish I was watching it. But it's from the highlights I saw, it just seems like the same old Notre Dame team in and out. Good enough defense, barely enough offense, solid line play on both sides of the ball. Wisconsin's just a thorough disappointment to me. I really thought that they were better than what they are. I thought the quarterback was better than he is. His passing efficiency was miserable. They're pretty much done, I would say, this year, giving the games away. Penn State and now this one. So Yeah, I mean, good for Notre Dame. Like you said, survive and advance. They do have a rough go. Our other friend Pal and JJ have also mentioned that a lot of teams that play Notre Dame get 2 weeks of rest before they play them. So it is something to be said, and for them to still survive is saying something. They're not getting a lot of love in the polls as much as polls count for. They're still hovering in the 10 area, 10 to 12. I'm not exactly sure where they're at, but solid team, But some people are going to have to lose in front of them for them to jump up, I think.
Let me honest question: should they be higher in the polls? Because you beat a horrible Florida State team in overtime. Right. You beat Toledo by 2 at home. Every game has been a challenge, whether it's Florida State or Toledo, or I don't remember the other team they played.
Purdue.
Purdue. And Wisconsin, you're just saying they're not, they're not living up to the standard. Now they ended up blowing Wisconsin out, and that's fair to say. But they were losing. Notre Dame was losing in the fourth quarter, so I think they're probably about where they should be, right?
Yeah, you're probably right. This week another test supposedly. I mean, Cincinnati. Who knows? If Cincinnati, are they good?
And we're going to talk about that in a minute because I got a bet on that game. Nelson says Alabama and the rest of the SEC have been raiding Texas recruits since Texas A&M joined the SEC. Nelson, I know you've been bicycling around the west part of the country, not the world, the western part of the country. I said this before. This was my dig at Texas fans when Texas A&M joined the SEC. I said, you guys don't understand. You think, every week now the SEC is going to be on in Texas. This is not the Big 12. Everybody watches the Big 12 anymore. Alabama's in here. Arkansas has always been in the Texas. Some of their best players in history are from Texas. But the other schools are now in Texas more often. And it got so bad, Texas joined the SEC, right? They said, we can't beat them. We're just going to join them. So that is true. And in fact, what Nelson put up there on the screen. This week, fellows, Arkansas at Georgia, Cincinnati at Notre Dame, as we were just talking about, Oregon at Stanford, Oklahoma at Kansas State, Florida at Kentucky, Ole Miss at Alabama, the game of the week, and Boston College at Clemson. How do we feel about the night game in Death Valley? Case is going to be there, but I'm just happy it's not at 2:30 because I'm a college football fan, and I have to watch Clemson. It's just in my blood, born and raised, and it's in my blood. Casey sits up straight, shows ACC championship
2006,
and it's in my blood. So I watch Clemson and watch the other games, as I can. But I sure am happy that Clemson Boston College is not at 2:30 this week. So, Locks, what's your take about a Saturday night game in Death Valley, the way things are going?
Yeah, it's a solid slate this week. As far as I know what I'm going to be watching from noon, I got the Georgia game. At 3:30, I got the Alabama game. And at 7:30, I got the Clemson game. So there's plenty of other games to flip around and watch too if anything's happening. So I look forward to the Clemson game. I think it's going to be exciting. I unfortunately think it's going to be closer than the line, but we'll see. I hope it's a blowout in Clemson's favor, but I think it could be a tight one with the defensive injuries that we suffered last week on the line, like we were kind of alluding to earlier. Boston College is not a bad team, so we'll see. But yeah, I'll be tuning into it for sure.
Beef, what's your Saturday look like? You're only going to watch the Clemson game. You're going to be at tailgating, right? So maybe somebody will have a TV you can borrow. What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, Mr. Yarber will be there with his family. He's got a TV. Where we're parking, they have a TV. So I think anywhere I go, I think there will be a TV available to me and copious amounts of adult beverages as well. I like the 7:30 game as far as being there. I hate the 7:30 game as far as trying to get out of town afterwards. So it's brutal. The traffic is just brutal leaving after a 7:30 game. But yeah, my slate looks a lot similar to Locke's. I'm sure that the CBS will be on, so that means that Arkansas, Georgia is probably ESPN. So ESPN will probably, especially in and around Clemson, there's going to be people with eyes on Georgia. Then absolutely Ole Miss, Alabama, and then hopefully around the third quarter, it'll be somewhat in hand by then, so I can leave, and then I'll listen to the luscious tones of our PA announcer in the stadium to hear how it ended. So I'm looking forward to the BC Clemson game. This is a game that for some reason I love. We've gone up to BC. I've gone with myself 4 different occasions since they've joined the league. It's a great spot that I really enjoy going to. Traditional Clemson fans don't really like it because the tailgating is kind of weird there. But it's a small, intimate stadium. It does get loud when they're good. It gets really drunk. It gets really drunk. I'm not usually really drunk there, but it's a lot of fun. It's a good little rivalry, especially being a kid from the Northeast. It's a good little rivalry. My school against the school in the Northeast, and BC's good, man. Dennis Grossell, he's a backup quarterback for Phil Yurkovich, who's out for the season. Grossell, he's really rallied the troops. They got a 3-headed monster at running back with Pat Garwo Jr., Alex Sinkfield. Travis Levy is the third guy. Like, they're just going to keep running out fresh dudes, and they want to run the ball up the middle. That's really what they did last week against Mizzou. They literally ran up the middle. So losing Brian Bursey is a big loss, and their offensive and defensive lines are tough. So Clemson's got to score because BC is going to score, and they got that little Zay Flowers, that little scat back. They want to get the ball in his hands too. He's dynamic. So BC is going to be tough. I don't know why this line's 16 and a half, I think, is what I saw today. I don't know why it keeps moving that direction. It's going to be an interesting game. BC's the team to beat right now in the Atlantic, kind of like the Matt Ryan years.
Clemson's got to run more than 25 plays, I think, to have a chance, and maybe more than 8 or 9 first downs. I tailgated one time down at UT, and that was interesting for me. And I thought about that when you talked about tailgating at Boston College being different. Downtown Austin, right? I don't know if you guys know that, but their stadium is downtown. I mean,
really,
the interstate is right next to it. That Max Bubble, their bubble for practice, is right next to the interstate. But it is just weird tailgating with concrete. I mean, it was strange. That was great. There's barbecue all over the place, and you could walk to bars, like real bars, But it was just weird with all the concrete around, and they had the streets blocked off, so it wasn't traffic, but it was just congested, noisy, and just a whole different thing. All right,
we tailgate in the library park. It's a parking garage, and it's the library parking garage. It is brilliant. It's brilliant. It is so much fun. So anyway.
Oh, no worries. All right, fellas, it's that time. I don't think you could have done any worse if you tried.
Well, I take that as a victory.
These guys aren't doing research, so why should I? Beef, you stink the most.
A true believer in what they're doing in North Carolina. That's why I'm picking Virginia Tech, Tennessee.
I love Spencer Rattler.
I agree with Marty.
I don't like this.
Look, you smell it, the backdoor cover.
All right, fellas, last week I was bragging about our record on social media. I think we started the week out at 16-10 and won. And then I won
first one
to make it 17-10 and 1. And then collectively, the rest of our weekend went like this. That's kind of what everybody said to us. We went 2-7 on the week. Zach and I went 2-4.
Appreciate it, Marty.
Let's do the math. That leaves
carry the one plus tax.
Casey had a rough week, but truthfully, I was close on the game. But hey, my only win was close too. So what am I going to do? I was 1-2. That's my record. That's the way it went. This week, well, let's do this first. Let me share my screen here. It's always confused me. Where's the share at? Right there. Share screen. Oh, Chrome tab. So I am the least loser of the three of us. Zach lost $1,792 last week. Casey lost $1,650. I only lost $1,535. I was so close with the Clemson game. Right, I had the over under 47. All they needed to do was, whatever. We know what happened.
Same thing with me with the UCLA game. It was at 60. They scored 59. Ugh.
Yeah, we were both struggling. But on the season now, Zach and I are both 7-5. Casey's 4-7-1. Locks looks like he's lost 652 overall. I've lost 179, and Beef has lost a whole bunch more than both of us. But it's still early in the season, Beef. There's still a chance. There's plenty of chances, and they're coming up right now. But I'm going to go first because I'm the least loser. We all had a rough week. I'm going back to the well. I took Virginia last time, and they let me down, right? They didn't score, but they weren't playing Miami. They weren't playing Manny. This is not a bet on Virginia. This is a bet against Manny Diaz and the Miami Hurricanes at home. I think this team probably didn't care anymore. And I'm getting 4 points for a Virginia offense that at times can be quite electric. And we know Miami's the worst tackling team in the country. Yeah. I mean, that's why those guys, I sent you that clip a couple of weeks ago. That's why they chose them. They're terrible. How can they not? They have to get better. No, they didn't get better. They lost that game. And I think they're going to lose this game also. Give me Virginia plus the 4. And Locks, you're in second place. You can go next.
Yeah, I got to start off with my people, my SECs, Alabama and Ole Miss. I started checking my phone for the over-under line immediately on Sunday at about 3:30, refresh until it popped up, and I locked it in at 76.5. Since then, it has gone up to a balmy 80 points, boys. That is a whole lot of scoring going on this game. I don't see how it doesn't go over. I think it's going to be an electric game. It's going to be like a Big 12 up and down the field. You got 2 Heisman front runners at the quarterback position. Lane Kiffin is going to be out for blood if he can get any. And I mean, I really just think it's going to be a fun game to watch. I think it could be well over 80 even. You never know what may happen here. So put me down for 750 Sluggo bucks on the over on this one.
I will do that, and thank you for reminding me because I didn't say what I was going to bet on Virginia. And you're minus 106 on that 76.5, by the way. Virginia is minus 112. I'm going to put 300 Sluggo bucks on that. I learned my lesson about that 1,000 last week, fellas. That hurt the old wallet. And by the way, Locks, our good friend Anthony Weeks says you're jinxed by wearing that SEC shirt. We knew that already. Everyone got a push. No. 3 picks. Nelson, 3 picks. And look here, Michael Hahn's in the house. So no telling what's coming up next, Casey. And you're up next, actually. Your first pick of the week, Case.
You're on the mute.
Beef?
Yeah, now I'm unmuted now. How about that? See what happens? Technology. So Locks, I'm a one-upper in life. And Locks said he had the toilet bowl last week, but I got the true toilet bowl this week. Vanderbilt is a 14-point favorites versus Connecticut. And so I'm going to the well early and often, and I'm actually going with Vandy minus 14 for 1,000 Sluggo bucks.
I like the play.
Lock it in.
Well done. Well done.
They pay on bad teams too, Beef. That's minus 109. All right.
SHP should have beaten St. Peter's Prep, Rob.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, my turn again. We're going to go back to that Cincinnati Notre Dame game we're talking about. Now, I've been hearing a lot about this game since I locked this in because I feel I get under pressure. When you guys start making picks, I got to make my picks too, right? And I think I may have made the wrong pick, but even a blind squirrel finds a nut or whatever. I thought Notre Dame plus 1.5 was a good bet. Now, it's going up to 2.5 now, so I'm starting to wonder a little bit, right? But I got Notre Dame at home getting points to an AAC team. I think I got to take that. Now, I don't know who's going to win. I just know that I listened to a podcast before we got on here that said Notre Dame's offensive line. It sounded like they were talking about Clemson, saying they may be the worst in the country. I'm thinking, has this guy seen the Clemson Tigers play? Apparently not. But he thinks Notre Dame has one of the worst offensive lines, and they're going to lose outright to Cincinnati. Me, I'm going to bet on the Irish just because I think they've got better athletes, position in and position out. I'm not sure about the quarterback. I'm a little bit worried about Notre Dame's offense. but we'll see. So I'm taking Notre Dame plus 1.5, and I feel so confident I'm going to do 200 Sluggo bucks on the Fighting Irish minus 113. Locks, your second pick.
Let's see. My next one is Friday night special, right? We have Iowa versus Maryland, traveling down to the Dirty Terps, as SVP says. I flip-flopped on this one twice now, I think. I liked it right when I locked it in at -4. Now it's down to 3.5. Iowa has an elite defense, only averaging giving up 11 points allowed per game this year. They played 2 ranked teams. They beat them both. They've won away. Maryland has a really good offense, but they really haven't played anybody. So, and plus they're at home. I think it is going to be a tighter game. I think Iowa wins by maybe like a touchdown here. I think it's going to be a really good Friday night game to watch, guys. It should be fun. So put me down for Iowa in the cover, and just let's go with like 300 on that one. I think I'm not supremely confident about it, but
all right, you're starting to turn. Last week I went your guys' way with the 1,000.
Yeah, we're down it back down.
This week I'm going. We're all going back to the lower bets. All right, Beef. Bet number 2 for Mr. Beef.
Bet number 2, go big or go home. I originally wanted Georgia, Arkansas over under. I locked it in at 48.5. All day today, literally was trying to manufacture a way to pick the over. I'm going with the under here, Georgia, Arkansas, under 48.5. I just literally, and just thinking about it while Locks was rambling on about Iowa and Maryland, I was thinking to myself, that 28-20, 31-20, I just don't know. I don't trust Georgia's offense quite yet. Yes, they threw a 60 burger up on somebody, but that defense isn't going to allow it. So I think they're going to do just enough to win. However, I'm going to go under 48.5.
How many bucks?
I did 1,000 on the Vandy game, so do 205 Sluggo bucks.
205.
I mean,
I'm at 1505 or 8505. I like zeros. When I lose,
how'd that work out last time?
I'm at 8505. That's how it works.
He likes zeros. Coincidentally, that's how many games he got right last week.
Yeah.
All right. I think, my third pick, I don't think it needs a lot of explaining. I'm going to take Boston College plus 14.5. I thought, again, I didn't get the best of the number because I didn't wait. And I thought 14.5, this has got to go down, right? It's got to go down like under 14. And I wanted that hook. Little did I know it was going to go the opposite direction. But I'm going to take Boston College plus 14.5. I think Clemson finds a way to win. But like I said, we don't need a lot of explaining to why I don't think Clemson is going to beat Boston College by more than 14 points. And again, as I said last week, if I happen to be wrong, oh well, it's Sluggo bucks and Clemson has crushed Boston College, right? So Boston College plus 14.5, or I'm going to do 500 on that game just to get a little skin in the game with you guys. All right, Locks, your third pick.
My third pick is Oregon versus Stanford. Locked it in at 58 points for the over-under, and I think it's right around there. I don't think it's changed much. So this one again too, I was like, under, but I think I'm going to end up taking the over. Oregon still has some defensive injuries. They're going to score. Stanford can score and can run the ball too. I think that's going to be a big factor. So I think 58's probably just not enough. I think there'd be probably about 60, 65 in there. So put me down for the over. Give me 400.
400 Sluggo bucks. That will see its way back into the coffers of the Sluggo bookie. All right, Beef, your third and final pick and our final pick of the night. Thank goodness.
Speaking of bookies, I got my text message going with Han. He's my degenerate gambler friend. All right, good. He just verified what I'm doing, so we'll definitely lose this one. Michigan versus Wisconsin. We watched Wisconsin. I watched way too much Wisconsin last week. I watched way too much Michigan because that Michigan-Rutgers game was when the really frustrating time of the Clemson NC State game. So I spent a lot of time watching Michigan-Rutgers as well. Michigan almost tried to blow that game. Rutgers, in typical Rutgers fashion, was like, "Nah, we're not good enough yet." So all signs point to Wisconsin with a re-up game. Games in Wisconsin. Michigan I got it locked in at +1, and I'm actually going to go with Michigan. Even though everything's telling me to pick Wisconsin, except Mike Hahn, I'm going Michigan.
How many Sluggo bucks?
300.
Ooh, you're not very confident.
No, I'm not confident
I
this week at
certainly
all.
understand.
Just
Or
Vandy.
should I say you're not very confident in Hans' bet? Han says, God hates me, so Notre Dame's going to make the playoffs. Yarber says, God doesn't hate you that much.
No, he does. He does. Definitely.
Han wants somebody to pick Army. That was last week. I believe that was one of Beef's big fat L's last week. And Stanford sucks. He's a message for locks.
He wants me to parlay those 3 picks, too. He likes my picks this week.
He likes your money because you're, lose those picks. Okay. My picks: Virginia +4, -112 at Miami for 300 Sluggo bucks. Notre Dame +1.5, -113 versus Cincinnati, 200 Sluggo bucks. And Boston College +14.5, -107 at Clemson for 500 Sluggo bucks. I only got 1,000 on the line for all 3 games combined, and I'm taking $300. Interesting. All right, Beef, Georgia, Arkansas, under 48.5, -110 for 205 weird Sluggo bucks. Vanderbilt, -14 versus Connecticut. The real toilet bowl, as Beef put on our rundown, for 1,000 Sluggo bucks. That's -109 if I didn't say that. Michigan, +1, -112 versus Wisconsin. He said everything's telling him to pick Wisconsin, so he's going to go with Michigan for 300 Sluggo bucks. Mr. SEC, also known as Zach Locks Parker, Alabama Ole Miss. He's taking the over over 76.5, -106 for 750 Sluggo bucks. Iowa -4, -105 at Maryland, undefeated Maryland for 300 Sluggo bucks. Oregon, Stanford, over 58. Now, the over is -118. The under was a lot less than that. I think it was 106. They want you to bet on the under. That must mean Zach's got the right idea here. 400 Sluggo bucks. Whew. Sound right, fellas? Sounds good.
Right. So I'm betting the most this week.
Yep. Well, you got the most to make up. So
that's right. With the hook, 1505.
All right. Sounds cool. Chopping Beef. I couldn't watch it live last week. What's coming up this week, Case? You guys?
Yeah, we got a great agenda of stuff. I've been really sending out a lot of information to Locks. Oh, you haven't gotten it yet?
It must be in the interwebs.
It's in the cloud. No, I'm sure we'll have some stuff. We had a pretty good show last week. We had our friend Mike Palk on with us. It was fun. It flowed. It went a little long, and then of course I forgot to put it on the podcast version. So
well done.
After Marty so friendly gave it to me, but I didn't put it up.
My hours and hours and hours of drinking beer while I watch the thing spin around is wasted.
Yeah. Well, I might do it tonight because Nelson was looking for it. So
sounds
I don't want
good.
to disappoint our fan.
Over on seldomusereserve.com, I finally got pen to paper or cursor to internet and wrote something on being perspective as a Clemson fan, trying to help people along through the last couple of weeks. And if they lose Saturday, somebody might have to help me along for the next couple of weeks. From last week, Beef did a 2 cents, and it was a great article, Beef. I liked it. You said your wife even read it, which really impressed me, and Locks read it, which shocked me.
Skimmed it.
Those are the 2 views that I saw you had, your wife and Locks. So
perfect.
That works out. That's everybody you need, right? And John Chansey has been doing great work over there. A lot of stuff for me, keep the information flowing. It's been a lot of fun working with Chansey. He's been picking kind of like we have, not the greatest thing, not so great. But for Casey the Beef Cregan, you want to tell everybody goodbye?
Sure. Thanks so much to everyone in the Facebook group, especially Nelson Wilhite, for traveling back east so that he can help edit and produce our show. and all his help and support. Sean Chansey for his work on Seldom News Reserve. No one better writing articles. Everyone on Seldom News Reserve Sluggo Podcast, each and every one of you who listens, likes, participates, and shares our show. Little side note, I will be in Clemson this weekend, so hit me up on the social medias if you're around. Love to drink a beer with you. On behalf of Marty, Seldom News Reserve, Coleman, Zach Locks, Parker, I am Casey the Beef Creek, and thanks so much for joining us on Sluggo. We'll see you next week.
You're going to connect with JP Priester, right, Case?
Yes, sir. Can't wait.
All right. Thanks, Locks. You guys have a good night.
See y'all.
I think we're done here.